The February wind cut through Detroit like a blade, whipping snow across the parking lot of Morrison Luxury Auto Repair. Inside the heated showroom, Marcus Richardson stood with his arms crossed, his Armani suit immaculate, despite the chaos unfolding in the service bay beyond the glass partition. At 42, Marcus had built his reputation on two things: impeccable taste in European automobiles and an unforgiving standard for excellence. Today, both were being tested. "Mr. Richardson, I really think we should run another diagnostic before..." "Before what, exactly?" Marcus's voice sliced through the air, sharp enough to make the receptionist at the front desk flinch. He turned his cold gaze toward the young woman in grease-stained coveralls standing before him. Elena Martinez couldn't have been more than 26, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her face smudged with oil. She held a tablet with diagnostic readings, but her hands trembled slightly under Marcus's withering stare. The showroom had fallen silent. 3 other customers waiting for their vehicles, a silver-haired businessman, a young couple, and an older woman in a fur coat, had all stopped their conversations to watch. Even the salespeople had paused their pitches. Everyone knew who Marcus Richardson was. Everyone knew his temper. The initial readings suggest the problem might be in the fuel injection system. "But there are some irregularities that," Elena began, her voice steady despite the attention. "Irregularities?" Marcus stepped closer, his voice rising. "I brought my Porsche 911 GT3 RS here 3 weeks ago for what should have been a simple service. 3 weeks, Ms. Martinez. Do you know what that car costs? Do you have any concept of what it means to be without a vehicle of that caliber for 21 days? Elena's jaw tightened. "Sir, I understand your frustration, but rushing the diagnosis could what? Cost me more time, more money." Marcus's laugh was bitter. "I have already invested over $12,000 in repairs based on your diagnostics. The senior mechanics assured me you were competent, that you'd trained at one of the best technical schools in Michigan. But all I've seen is incompetence." The color drained from Elena's face, but she held her ground. "Mr. Richardson, with all due respect, we followed every protocol. The initial repairs were necessary, the transmission issues were real, and the brake system replacement was critical for your safety. But this new problem with the engine is complex, and I need more time to..." "Time?" Marcus's voice echoed through the showroom. "You've had 3 weeks. My patience has limits, Ms. Martinez, and you, exceeded them all." Behind the glass partition, other mechanics had stopped working. Tom Sullivan, the shop's senior technician, a burly man in his 50s with 30 years of experience, emerged from the service bay, wiping his hands on a red rag. His weathered face showed concern as he approached. "Marcus, maybe we should discuss this in my office," Tom said carefully, using the first name of a man who'd been his client for over a decade. "No, Tom, this needs to be said publicly." Marcus gestured toward Elena. "This young woman has had every opportunity to prove herself. I've been patient. I've been understanding. But incompetence can't be tolerated, not at these rates, not with these vehicles." Elena. His eyes glistened, but her voice remained controlled. "I am not incompetent, Mr. Richardson. The diagnostic process for European high-performance vehicles is complex. Every mechanic here will tell you that rushing can lead to misdiagnosis, which would cost you even more." "Stop making excuses." Marcus's shout made everyone in the showroom jump. "I don't want to hear about complexity or process. I want results, and since you clearly can't deliver them, you were fired, effective immediately." The words hung in the air like smoke from an explosion. Eleanor stood frozen, the tablet slipping slightly in her grip. Tom's mouth opened to protest, but Marcus raised a hand to silence him. "Tom, I'm sorry. But this is non-negotiable. I've been more than generous. Find someone else to work on my vehicle, someone who actually knows what they were doing. Eleanor S. dark eyes hardened. For a moment, Marcus thought she might cry, might break down in front of everyone. Instead, she carefully set the tablet on the nearby counter, her movements deliberate and controlled. "And what? You know what, Mr. Richardson?" Her voice was quiet, but carried through the silent showroom. "You're absolutely right about one thing. This is taking too long. But it's not because I'm incompetent. It is because I actually care about finding the real problem instead of throwing parts at your car until something sticks." "Elena," Tom started. But she continued, "I've worked on hundreds of vehicles, including dozens of high-performance European cars. I graduated top of my class from UTI. I've spent countless hours on your Porsche because I knew something wasn't right with the standard diagnosis. But you don't want a thorough mechanic, Mr. Richardson. You want someone who'll tell you what you want to hear, charge you for expensive parts, and send you on your way." Marcus's face had turned red. "How dare you? I'm already fired, so what does it matter?" Elena pulled off her work gloves, one finger at a time. "You want to know the truth? That engine is going to fail. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but there is something wrong that none of the previous repairs addressed. And when it does fail, probably catastrophically, you'll bring it back here. You'll blame whoever works on it next, and you'll never once consider that maybe, just maybe, you should have listened." She placed her gloves on the counter beside the tablet. "Tom, I'm sorry. You've been a great boss, and I've loved working here, but I can't work for clients who value speed over quality, who think money entitles them to treat people like garbage." With that, Eleanor walked toward the employee area, her back straight, despite the tremor in her shoulders. Every eye in the showroom followed her until she disappeared through the doorway. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus turned to Tom, his face still flushed. "I trust you'll have someone competent take over immediately." Tom looked at him with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. Disappointment, perhaps, or something deeper. "I'll handle it personally," Tom said quietly. "But Marcus, you should know, Elena is the best diagnostic technician I've ever worked with. What she lacks in years, she makes up for in intuition and dedication." "Then perhaps you should re-evaluate your standards," Marcus replied coldly. "Now, how soon can I have my car back?" Tom sighed, looking suddenly older. "I'll need to review all her notes and start fresh. Could be another week, maybe more." "Unacceptable. It's the reality. If you want, I can recommend another shop, but—" "Fine, one more week. But I want daily updates. Understood?" "Understood." Marcus left without another word, pushing through the glass doors into the bitter Detroit winter. The cold hit him immediately, but he barely noticed as he climbed into his temporary rental, a BMW 7 Series that felt inadequate compared to his Porsche. As he started the engine, he caught a glimpse of himself in the rearview mirror. For just a moment, he saw something in his own eyes that made him uncomfortable, something that looked almost like shame. But he pushed the feeling aside. He'd been right to fire her. This was business. This was about standards. In his world, there was no room for excuses, no matter how well-intentioned. As he pulled out of the parking lot, he didn't see Elena emerge from the employee entrance, carrying a box of her personal tools. He didn't see Tom standing at the window, watching her walk to her old Honda Civic, or the way Tom shook his head sadly. He didn't see the other mechanics gathering around Tom, their faces grim, or hear their conversation about loyalty and principle. Marcus Richardson saw only the road ahead, convinced he'd made the right decision, never suspecting that this moment would change everything. Inside the shop, Tom picked up Elena's tablet, scrolling through her detailed notes. Page after page of observations, measurements, cross-references to technical manuals. She'd been thorough, more thorough than most mechanics would have been. And there, buried in her notes from the previous day, was a notation that made Tom's eyebrows rise. Possible ECU software conflict with aftermarket performance chip. Recommend full system analysis before proceeding with fuel injector replacement. Warning. Critical. Tom looked up at the Porsche sitting in Bay 3, its hood still open, its engine exposed like a patient on an operating table. Elena had been onto something, and Marcus Richardson had just fired the one person who might have saved his $70,000 engine from catastrophic failure. "Damn it, Marcus," Tom muttered to himself. "What have you done?" 3 days after the firing, Marcus Richardson sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor of the Renaissance Center, staring out at the frozen Detroit River without really seeing it. The city spread below him like a model, the morning sun reflecting off glass towers and snow-covered streets. His desk, a minimalist design in dark walnut, held 3 computer monitors, all displaying various stock portfolios and financial reports, but Marcus wasn't reading any of them. His phone buzzed. Another text from Tom Sullivan. "Need to discuss your vehicle. Call when you can." Marcus had been avoiding that call for 2 days now. Something about Tom's messages felt different, not the usual updates about parts delays or repair schedules. There was an urgency to them that Marcus didn't want to confront. "Mr. Richardson?" His assistant, Janet, appeared in the doorway. At 53, Janet had been with Marcus for nearly 8 years, one of the few people who learned to navigate his moods. "Your 10 o'clock is here, the Patterson Holdings team. Give me 5 minutes, and quote." Janet nodded and withdrew. Marcus turned from the window and finally picked up his phone, dialing Tom's number. "Marcus, thank God." Tom answered immediately. "We need to talk about your Porsche. Is it ready?" A pause. "No, actually it is worse than I thought. A lot worse." Marcus felt a cold knot form in his stomach. And quote. "What do you mean?" "I spent the last 3 days going over every inch of that engine, following Elena's notes. Marcus, she was right. There's a critical flaw that none of us caught initially. Not me, not Frank, not anyone. It's in the ECU programming. Someone installed an aftermarket performance chip before you bought the car, and it is creating a conflict with the factory fuel injection system. If you'd have driven that car with the fix we were planning to implement, the engine would have seized within a few 100 miles. The knot tightened. "How is that possible? Your mechanics..." "Our mechanics ran the standard diagnostics." Elena went deeper. She spent her own time researching online forums, technical bulletins, even reached out to a Porsche specialist in California. She found 3 similar cases from the past 2 years. All 3 resulted in complete engine failure. Replacement cost? North of $40,000. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. "But you were saying the engine is salvageable now." And quote, "If we correct the ECU programming and remove the aftermarket chip, yes, it'll take another week, maybe 2. But Marcus..." Tom's voice grew heavier. "You need to understand something. Elena saved you from a catastrophic loss, and you fired her in front of everyone. Word has spread through the whole automotive community here in Detroit. It's not good." And quote, "I don't care about..." "You should care. Elena wasn't just any mechanic. She's been volunteering at the Detroit Youth Automotive Program, teaching underprivileged kids basic car maintenance. She's been writing articles for Autotech magazine. People in this industry know her name, respect her work, and now they know how you treated her." And quote. Marcus felt something he rarely experienced, genuine discomfort. "I was frustrated. The repairs were taking too long." "Because she was doing them right. Marcus, I've known you for over a decade. You're a demanding, yes, but you're also fair. What happened the other day? That wasn't like you." Marcus stood pacing to the window again. Below, he could see people moving through their morning routines, bundled against the cold, purposeful, anonymous. How many of them would he have treated the way he'd treated Elena? How many times had he dismissed someone as expertise because they didn't fit his image of success? "Where is she now?" Marcus asked quietly. "I don't know. She hasn't been answering my calls. I went by her apartment yesterday. She wasn't there. Her roommate said she's been staying with family in southwest Detroit, taking some time to figure out what's next." "I see. Marcus, this isn't just about bad publicity or making things right for appearance's sake. Elena is 26 years old. She worked 2 jobs to put herself through technical school. Her father was a mechanic who died when she was 16, some kind of workplace accident. She has been fighting to prove herself in a male-dominated field her entire career. And you—" Tom stopped himself. "I humiliated her," Marcus finished, "in front of everyone." "Yes, you did. And quat." The words hung between them. Marcus thought about his own father, Gerald Richardson, who'd built a construction empire from nothing, who'd taught Marcus that success meant never showing weakness, never accepting excuses. Gerald had been a hard man, demanding and often cruel. Marcus had spent his adult life trying to live up to that standard, never realizing he was perpetuating the same harshness that had made his own youth so difficult. "What do you think I should do?" Marcus asked, the question surprising even himself. "That's not for me to say. But if it were me, I'd find a way to make it right, not with money. Elena doesn't care about money, with something real." After ending the call, Marcus sat motionless for several minutes. Through the glass walls of his office, he could see his team gathering in the conference room for the Patterson Holdings meeting. Important clients, significant money on the line. His professional world, the one he'd built so carefully, waited for him, but all he could think about was Elena's face as he'd berated her. The way her hands had trembled on that tablet, the controlled fury in her voice as she defended herself. "You don't want a thorough mechanic," she'd said. "You want someone who'll tell you what you want to hear." She'd been right about the engine, about him, about everything. Marcus picked up his phone again, dialing a different number this time. "Janet, cancel my morning appointments, all of them." "Sir? The Patterson meeting, reschedule it. I have something more important to handle." Meanwhile, across the city in the neighborhood of southwest Detroit, Elena Martinez sat at her grandmother's kitchen table, surrounded by the familiar smells of her childhood: cinnamon, coffee, and the faint aroma of the tamales her abuela was preparing for tonight's family dinner. The kitchen was small and warm, decorated with decades of family photographs and religious icons. Outside the window, Elena could see the old garage where her father had taught her about engines when she was just 8 years old. "Mia, you've been staring at that coffee for 20 minutes. Her grandmother said in Spanish, her accent thick but her voice gentle. At 74, Rosa Martinez moved with the careful precision of someone who'd spent a lifetime working hard. "The coffee doesn't get better with waiting." "Lo siento, abuela," Elena replied, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "I'm just thinking." "And what? About the job?" "About everything." Rosa set down her rolling pin and came to sit beside her granddaughter. Her weathered hands, spotted with age and marked by work, took Elena's younger ones. "Tell me what happened, the real story." So Elena did. She told her grandmother about the 3 weeks she'd spent on Marcus Richardson's Porsche, about the discoveries she'd made, about the humiliation of being fired in front of everyone. As she spoke, her eyes filled with tears she hadn't allowed herself to shed at the shop. "And the worst part, abuela? I was right. I know I was right. That engine has a problem everyone else missed, and when it fails, and it will fail, it's going to cost him more than he could ever imagine, but he'll never know. I tried to save him from that. He'll just remember me as the incompetent mechanic who couldn't do her job fast enough." Rosa listened in silence, her expression thoughtful. When Elena finished, her grandmother was quiet for a long moment before speaking. Your papi, she began. Using the familiar term for Elena's father, he used to tell me about people like this Mr. Richardson, men who thought money made them better than others, who forgot that everyone, rich or poor, depends on the skill of working people. But you know what else he used to say? Elena shook her head. He said the best revenge against such people wasn't to anger. It was excellence. Be so good at what you do that the truth becomes undeniable. But I was excellent, and he still fired you, yes, because men like him, they need to learn their lessons the hard way. But Mija, your reputation doesn't come from one angry man. It comes from the quality of your work, from the people you help, from the integrity you show, even when no one is watching. Elena squeezed her grandmother's hands. Tom called again this morning. He wants me to come back to the shop. And you said, I told him I needed time, but honestly, Abuela, I don't know if I can go back. Every time I think about walking through those doors, I remember everyone watching as I was fired. The other mechanics, the customers, they all saw me fail. You didn't to fail. A proud man failed to see your value. That is different. Before Elena could respond, her phone rang. An unknown number. She considered letting it go to voicemail, but something made her answer. Is this Elena Martinez? A woman. As voice professional and crisp. Yes, who's this? My name is Catherine Wong. I'm the Director of Operations at Precision Import Services in Royal Oak. I heard about what happened at Morrison Auto. I was wondering if you'd be interested in meeting with me about a position. Elena's heart jumped. Precision Import Services was one of the most prestigious shops in the Detroit metro area, specializing in exotic and luxury vehicles. How did you hear about me? Word travels fast in this industry. Tom Sullivan called me 2 days ago. He said you were the best diagnostic tech he'd ever worked with, and if I had any openings, I'd be a fool not to pursue you. Then I did some research, read your articles in Autotech magazine, talked to some of your instructors from UTI. I'm impressed, Ms. Martinez. Very impressed. Elena looked at her grandmother, who was watching with knowing eyes. I'd be interested in meeting, yes. Excellent. How about tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock? I'll be there. And after ending the call, Elena sat in stunned silence. Rosa smiled, reaching over to pat her granddaughter's cheek. You see, Mija? Excellence finds its way to the light, always. But even as Elena felt a glimmer of hope, she couldn't shake the image of Marcus Richardson's face, twisted with anger and certainty. Some part of her wanted him to know he'd been wrong, wanted him to understand the cost of his cruelty, not for revenge, but for justice, for the recognition that people like her, working people with skill and dedication, deserved respect. As the afternoon light slanted through the kitchen window, Eleanor made a decision. She would go to the meeting with Precision Import Services. She would move forward with her career. But if the opportunity ever arose, if Marcus Richardson ever learned the truth about his engine, she wanted to be there to see it. Not with satisfaction, but with the quiet dignity of someone who'd been right all along. 2 weeks later, Marcus Richardson finally got his Porsche back. Tom Sullivan personally delivered it to Marcus's office building on a clear March afternoon. The kind of day when Detroit almost felt like spring might actually arrive. The car gleamed in the underground parking garage, its guards' red paint perfect under the fluorescent lights. Everything has been corrected, Tom explained, handing over a thick folder of documentation. We removed the aftermarket chip, reprogrammed the ECU with factory specifications, and ran a complete diagnostic. The engine's sound now should last you another 100,000 miles if you maintain it properly. Marcus ran his hand along the car's smooth hood, and the total cost. With the additional diagnostic work and ECU programming, you were looking at another 4,000. But Marcus, that is a bargain compared to what a complete engine replacement would have cost. I know. Marcus opened the folder, scanning the detailed reports. Page after page of technical specifications, all annotated in Tom S. careful handwriting. But he couldn't help noticing the earlier pages, Elena S. notes, with her distinctive margin comments and cross-references. Even in black and white, her thoroughness was evident. "Tom, have you heard from Elena?" Tom's expression became guarded. "She's landed on her feet, got hired at Precision Import Services in Royal Oak. Catherine Wong snapped her up immediately. From what I hear, Elena S. already made quite an impression there. That's good, unquote. Is it?" Tom S.'s voice held an edge Marcus had never heard before. "Because from where I am standing, one of the best shops in Metro Detroit just got stronger by poaching talent I should have been able to keep. And I lost that talent because a client, a friend, treated her like she was disposable." The words stung. "Tom, Save it, Marcus. I know you've been thinking about this. I can see it in your face every time we talk, but thinking about it and doing something about it are different things. What would you have me do? Show up at her new job and apologize? That would only embarrass her further. Maybe, but doing nothing, that just confirms everything she already believes about people like you." People like you. The phrase echoed in Marcus's mind long after Tom left. He sat in his Porsche, running his hands over the steering wheel, breathing in that distinctive smell of leather and machinery. The engine purred when he started it, smooth and powerful. Elena had saved this, her expertise, her diligence, her refusal to take shortcuts. She had preserved something Marcus valued more than he'd been willing to admit. He drove home to his loft in Midtown, the Porsche handling beautifully despite the rough Detroit streets. His apartment was everything a successful 42-year-old bachelor should want: exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture that cost more than most people's cars. But as he poured himself a bourbon and stood at those windows, watching the city lights flicker to life, the space felt hollow. His phone rang. His mother, calling from her retirement community in Florida. "Marcus, darling, you sound distracted," Linda Richardson said after their initial greetings. His mother had always been perceptive, sometimes annoyingly so. "Just work stuff, Mum." "Is it that same work stuff that's had you short-tempered for the past month? Janet called me, you know. She's worried about you." Marcus sighed. His mother and his assistant had formed an alliance years ago, united in their concern for his well-being. "It is complicated. Then uncomplicate it for me. I have time." Unquote. So Marcus told her. About Elena, about the firing, about learning he'd been wrong. His mother listened without interrupting, a skill she'd perfected over decades of being married to his father. "You know what your father would have said," Linda said when he finished. "That I was right to demand results, that emotional considerations have no place in business." Unquote. Yes, that's what he would have said. And you know why he would have been wrong? Marcus was surprised. His mother rarely criticized his father, even after the divorce. Why? "Because your father died alone, Marcus, surrounded by people who feared him or wanted something from him, but alone nonetheless. He built an empire, yes, but he never built relationships that mattered. He never learned that power without compassion is just tyranny on a smaller scale." The words hit Marcus harder than he'd expected. He thought about his father's funeral 2 years ago, hundreds of attendees, but how many had genuinely mourned? How many had come out of obligation or professional necessity? "I don't. You want to end up like him," Marcus said quietly. "Then don't he? You have a chance to do something different, to be someone different. That young woman, Elena, she doesn't need your money, but she deserves your acknowledgement, your respect, and you deserve the peace that comes from making things right." After hanging up, Marcus sat in the darkness of his loft, the city lights painting patterns across his walls. His mother was right. They were all right. Tom, Janet, even Elena herself. He'd been wrong, catastrophically wrong, and no amount of rationalization could change that. The question was, what could he do about it? The next morning, Marcus woke with a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. He made several calls, pulled some strings, and by noon had arranged what he hoped would be the first step toward making things right. At 2 o'clock, he walked into the offices of Autotech magazine in downtown Detroit. The receptionist looked surprised to see him. Marcus Richardson wasn't the type to make unannounced visits, but quickly ushered him into the editor-in-chief's office. David Park, a Korean-American man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and the perpetually harried look of someone managing deadlines, stood to greet him. "Mr. Richardson, this is unexpected. What can I do for you? I understand you've published several articles by Elena Martinez about diagnostic techniques for European performance vehicles." David, his expression became cautious. "Yes, we have. Elena is an excellent technical writer. Why do you ask? I'd like to sponsor a feature article, a deep dive into advanced diagnostic methods, specifically focusing on the kind of work that prevents catastrophic engine failures in high-performance vehicles. I want Elena to write it, and I want to fund whatever research or expert consultation she needs. Full creative control, no editorial input from me." David sat down slowly. "Mr. Richardson, I've heard about what happened at Morrison Auto. I have to ask, is this some kind of publicity stunt?" "No, it is an apology, or the beginning of one. Elena might not be interested, and quite, I know. But I'm asking you to extend the offer anyway. If she refuses, I'll understand. But she deserves to know that her work has value, that her expertise is recognized." David studied Marcus for a long moment. "You realize this will be public? If we run this feature and people find out you sponsored it, let them know I don't and care about appearances anymore. I care about doing the right thing." Something in Marcus's tone must have convinced David, because he nodded slowly. "I'll reach out to her, but Mr. Richardson, whatever else you have planned, whatever grand gesture you're considering, it better be genuine. Elena Martinez isn't someone you can manipulate or impress with money. She values integrity above everything else. I'm learning that." 3 days later, Marcus received a call from Catherine Wong at Precision Import Services. "Mr. Richardson, we've met before at the Detroit Auto Show last year. You probably don't remember." "I remember. You were showcasing some restoration work on a vintage Ferrari." "And what? Good memory. I am calling because Elena Martinez showed me something interesting today, an offer from Autotech magazine to write a feature article fully funded by an anonymous sponsor. She was very suspicious of it until she did some digging and found out the sponsor was you." Marcus's heart sank. "Ms. Wong, I can explain." "Let me finish. Elena asked me what I thought she should do. I told her that in my 20 years in this business, I've never seen someone like you, someone successful and powerful, try to make amends without making it about themselves. Most people in your position would have sent flowers, maybe a check. You tried to give her something that matters to her career, to her professional reputation." "And what did she say?" "She said she needs to think about it. But Mr. Richardson, she's just thinking about it. That is more than I expected." After the call ended, Marcus sat at his desk, staring at the framed photo on his credenza. Him with his Porsche at a charity event last summer, looking confident and untouchable. He barely recognized that man anymore. His phone buzzed with an email from Elena Martinez. Subject, Autotech proposal. "Mr. Richardson, I've been informed that you behind the article sponsorship. I appreciate the gesture, truly, but I need to understand why. This isn't tea about the article or the money. It is about whether you actually understand what happened, or if this is just your way of making yourself feel better. If you're genuinely sorry, if you've genuinely learned something, then we should talk. Not at a shop, not in public, somewhere neutral. I have questions, and I think you owe me honest answers. If you agree, respond to this email. If not, I'll politely decline the article offer and we can both move on with our lives. Elena Martinez. Marcus read the email 3 times. She was giving him a chance, not forgiveness, but an opportunity to explain himself, to be held accountable. It was more than he deserved. He typed his response carefully. Elena, you absolutely right. I do owe you honest answers. Name the time and place and I'll be there. No lawyers, no witnesses. Just 2 people trying to understand each other. I can't undo what I did, but I can try to be better than the man who did it. Marcus Richardson. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Whatever came next, whatever Elena decided, he would face it with the same courage she'd shown when standing up to him in that showroom. For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt something like hope. The coffee shop Elena chose was deliberately unremarkable, a small independent place in Ferndale called The Daily Grind, tucked between a vintage clothing store and a used bookshop. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early on a Saturday morning, dressed in jeans and a sweater rather than his usual suits. The March weather had finally broken, and through the shop, in the windows, he could see people walking by in light jackets, relieved by the hint of coming spring. He ordered a black coffee and took a seat at a corner table, his stomach churning with anxiety. What did one say in a situation like this? How did you apologize for humiliation, for cruelty, for failing to see someone's humanity? Elena arrived exactly on time. She wore dark jeans, boots, and a denim jacket over a grey t-shirt. Her hair was down, and without the grease-stained coveralls, she looked younger, more vulnerable. But her eyes held the same fierce intelligence Marcus remembered from that day in the showroom. She ordered a cappuccino before joining him, and for a moment they simply looked at each other across the small table. "Thank you for coming, Nquat," Marcus said finally. "I almost didn't tea." Elena wrapped her hands around her cup. "My grandmother thinks I'm being foolish, that some men can be taught, but I've always believed people can change if they want to badly enough. So here I am." "Your grandmother sounds wise." "She is. She raised me after my father died. Taught me that dignity isn't a something someone gives you. It's something you carry with you, no matter how others treat you." Marcus nodded, the weight of those words settling over him. "Elena, before we go any further, I need to say something. I was wrong, completely, utterly wrong, not just about the diagnosis, though I was wrong about that too, but about how I treated you. You deserved respect, and I gave you contempt. You deserved recognition, and I gave you humiliation. There's no excuse for that, no justification. I'm sorry." Elena studied him for a long moment. "Why did you do it? And I don't mean the firing specifically, I mean all of it. The impatience, the condescension, why, and what?" The question cut to the heart of everything Marcus had been grappling with for weeks. He took a breath, choosing his words carefully. "My father was a hard man. Successful, powerful, but hard. He built his construction company from nothing, and he taught me that success required ruthlessness, that showing weakness or accepting excuses was a path to failure. For years I thought that's what strength looked like, never backing down, never admitting uncertainty, always demanding the best and accepting nothing less." "That doesn't answer my question," Elena said quietly. "Plenty of people had difficult fathers. They don't all treat service workers like garbage." Marcus felt his face flush, but he pushed forward. "You're right. The truth is, I think I was afraid. Afraid of what? Of not being in control. My entire life is built on control. Controlling my investments, my schedule, my environment. When you told me that the car needed more time, that there was something complex that couldn't be rushed, it felt like losing control. And instead of trusting your expertise, I lashed out. I made it about your competence when really it was about my own insecurity. Elena's expression softened slightly. That's more honest than I expected. The worst part is that you were right about everything. Tom told me about the ECU programming issue, about how close I came to destroying that engine. You saved me from a $40,000 mistake, and I repaid you by firing you in front of everyone. The irony isn't lost on me. No, I imagine it is not. Elena took a sip of her cappuccino. The article offer, that was a nice gesture. But Mr. Richardson... Marcus, please. Marcus, that gesture only means something if you've actually learned something, have you? And what? It was the crucial question, the one everything else depended on. Marcus thought about the past few weeks, the sleepless nights, the conversations with his mother and Tom, the slow, painful realization that he'd been living his life wrong. I've learned that expertise isn't always loud or confident, that thorough work takes time, that treating people with dignity isn't nudity weakness, it's basic decency. He paused. And I've learned that being my father's son doesn't mean I have to be my father. Elena's eyes glistened slightly. My father died in a workplace accident when I was 16. An industrial lift failed at the shop where he worked. The owner had been cutting corners on maintenance, ignoring my dad. His warnings that the equipment was unsafe. After the accident, that owner blamed my father, said he'd been careless. It took 3 years of legal battles to prove the truth. I'm so sorry. I became a mechanic because of him, because he taught me that good work, careful work, saves lives. When you fired me that day, all I could think was, this is what my father faced. People who cared more about convenience than safety, who blamed the worker instead of listening to their expertise. The parallel hit Marcus like a physical blow. Elena, I'm not telling you this to make you feel worse, Elena interrupted. I'm telling you so you understand what's at stake. It's not just about hurt feelings or wounded pride. When people in power dismiss the people who do the actual work, who have the actual expertise, bad things happen. Engines fail, buildings collapse, people die. They sat in silence for a moment, the coffee shop's ambient noise, the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of other conversations filling the space between them. What can I do? Marcus asked finally. How do I make this right? Elena smiled slightly, but it was sad. You can't make it right. You can't undo what happened, but you can try to do better going forward. The article... I'm going to accept the article offer, not because of you, but because it's good for my career. Catherine Wong has been amazing. She is giving me opportunities to work on vehicles I never would have seen at Morrison Auto. But I want credit for my work, and this article will help establish my reputation beyond one bad incident. Fair enough. What else? You could start by examining how you treat other people in service positions. Waiters, retail workers, valets, all the people whose labor makes your life comfortable, but who you probably barely notice. My grandmother says you can tell everything about a person by how they treat people who can't do anything for them. Marcus thought about the countless interactions he'd had over the years, the dismissive tones, the lack of basic courtesy. Your grandmother is a wise woman, and what she is. And us? Is there any possibility of not friendship necessarily, but mutual respect? Eleanor considered this carefully. Maybe, in time, but Marcus, respect has to be earned, especially after it's been lost. I understand. Would you be willing to let me try to earn it? What did you have in mind? And what? Marcus had been thinking about this since receiving Elena's email. Morrison Auto is launching a mentorship program for young mechanics, particularly focusing on underrepresented groups in the automotive industry. Tom told me you've been volunteering with the Detroit Youth Automotive Program. What if we partnered with them? Full funding for tools, training materials, guest speakers. And I'd like you to help design the curriculum. Elena's eyes widened. That's actually meaningful. I thought about just writing you a check, but that felt hollow. This way, we're investing in other people like you, people with talent and dedication who just need opportunity. And you, who have no editorial control. This wouldn't be some PR stunt with your name plastered everywhere. Anonymous funding, if you prefer. Or if you want transparency, we can be open about it, whatever serves the program best. For the first time since sitting down, Elena's expression truly softened. You've really thought about this. I've thought about little else for weeks. Elena drummed her fingers on the table, considering. Okay, I'll work with you on this, but I have conditions. Name them. First, this has to be real. Not a one-time donation, but sustained support. These kids need consistency, not a tax write-off. Second, you participate. I want you coming to the program, talking to these kids, hearing their stories. Third, if at any point this becomes about your ego instead of the students, I walk away. Agreed. All of it. They talked for another hour, sketching out ideas on napkins, debating curriculum approaches, discussing the barriers young people faced entering the automotive industry. Marcus found himself genuinely engaged, listening to Elena's insights about education and opportunity in ways he'd never considered before. As they prepared to leave, Elena extended her hand. One more thing. Anything. That day in the showroom, when you fired me? Some of the other mechanics wanted to walk out in protest. Tom talked them down, told them to give you a chance to make things right. They were good people, and they deserve to work in an environment where that kind of thing doesn't happen. I'll talk to Tom. Make sure he knows that was unacceptable behavior, that it won't happen again. See that it doesn't. They shook hands, and Marcus felt the firmness of her grip. The calluses earned from years of working with tools. It was a hand that had saved his engine, and in some ways had saved him too. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the workshop of the Detroit Youth Automotive Program, watching Elena demonstrate proper diagnostic techniques to a dozen teenagers. The space, formerly an abandoned warehouse, had been transformed with new equipment, tool stations, and even a small classroom area. The walls displayed inspirational posters featuring successful mechanics and engineers from diverse backgrounds. The key, Elena was explaining to her attentive audience, is not to rush to conclusions. Every symptom tells you something, but you have to listen to what the car is actually saying, not what you expect it to say. And quote, a young woman, maybe 16, with bright pink highlights in her black hair, raised her hand. But what if someone's pressuring you to work faster? Like, what if they're angry because it's taking too long? Elena glanced at Marcus before answering. Then you remember that your job isn't to make them happy in the moment. Your job is to do good work, safe work. If they can't appreciate that, it says more about them than it does about you. Marcus felt the weight of those words, but also the grace in them. Elena had told that story before, the story of being fired, but always as a teaching moment, rather than an act of public shaming. She'd given him the gift of her discretion, even as she'd held him accountable. After the class ended, Marcus helped Elena and the other volunteers clean up the workspace. Tom Sullivan was there too. He'd volunteered as an instructor, bringing 3 decades of experience to eager young minds. Not bad for a guy who used to think manual labor was beneath him, Tom said with a grin, watching Marcus efficiently organize tool sets. I am learning, Marcus replied. And quote, slowly, but learning. Elena joined them, wiping her hands on a rag. The Johnson kid, the one with the question about pressure. She just told me she got accepted to UTI for next fall. Full scholarship. That is fantastic, Marcus said, and meant it. Over the past 6 months, he'd learned all their names, heard all their stories. kids from Detroit, Highland Park, Hamtramck, kids who'd grown up with challenges Marcus had never had to face, but who possessed determination that humbled him. She wants to specialize in electric vehicle technology, Elena continued. She says the future of automotive is going electric, and she wants to be part of it. Smart kid, Tom said. Speaking of which, Marcus, there's something Elena and I have been discussing. Marcus looked between them. Should I be worried? Elena smiled, a genuine smile that had taken months to earn. We want to expand the program. Not just basic maintenance, but advanced diagnostics, hybrid and electric systems, even some basic business skills for kids who might want to open their own shop someday. But it would require significant additional funding. How much are we talking about? Maybe twice our current budget. I know that's a lot. Do it, Marcus interrupted. Whatever you need. These kids deserve every opportunity we can give them. Tom clapped him on the shoulder. You know, Marcus, when Elena first told me about your proposal for this program, I was skeptical, thought it might be just guilt money, but you've really shown up. These kids trust you because you've invested time, not just money. They've taught me more than I've taught them, Marcus said honestly, about resilience, about finding dignity in work, about not letting circumstances define your potential. After Tom left to lock up, Marcus and Elena stood in the parking lot as the sun set over Detroit, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Your grandmother was right, you know, Marcus said, about dignity being something you carry with you. She usually is. She'd like to meet you, actually. She's been following the program's progress? I'd be honored. Elena studied him for a moment. You've changed, Marcus. Not completely, you are still demanding, still particular about excellence, but you've learned to channel that productively instead of destructively. I had a good teacher, several actually, and quat. The article comes out next month. Autotech is making it their feature story. They're recalling it The Art of Automotive Diagnosis, when patience saves engines. I'll buy several copies. You don't have to. I want to. I want to remember how close I came to destroying something valuable because I couldn't see past my own impatience. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, two people who'd started as adversaries and had become, if not quite friends, then allies in something meaningful. You know what the best part of all this is? Elena said finally. What's is that? The kids in this program, they're relearning from our mistakes. They're seeing that expertise matters, that dignity matters, that treating people with respect isn't a weakness. Maybe they'll build a better industry than the one we inherited. Marcus thought about his father, about the empire built on hardness and fear. Then he thought about these kids, learning not just skills, but values, preparing to enter a world where their expertise would be valued, where their voices would be heard. They will, Marcus said with certainty, because they have better teachers than I did. Elena smiled. We all learn eventually. Some of us just take longer than others. As Marcus drove home that evening in his Porsche, running perfectly thanks to Elena, as expertise 6 months ago, he thought about the journey that had brought him here, the humiliation of being wrong, the discomfort of confronting his own prejudices and failures, the slow, difficult work of becoming someone better than he'd been. His phone rang through the car's speakers, his mother's number. Hey, Mom. Marcus, I'm calling about the program. I saw the video you sent. Those kids are amazing. I want to establish a scholarship fund, something that covers not just technical school, but also business courses, maybe even college for the ones who want to pursue engineering. Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest. That would be incredible, Mom. Let me connect you with Elena. She can help structure it properly. And quat. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. You took something terrible and turned it into something that matters. After hanging up, Marcus continued through the Detroit streets as evening fell over the city. Lights flickered on in windows, people hurried home from work, The city breathed with the rhythm of thousands of ordinary lives intersecting. And for the first time in years, Marcus felt like he was truly part of that rhythm rather than above it. He thought about Elena's words that first day at the coffee shop. Respect has to be earned, especially after it has been lost. He was still earning it, every day, every interaction, every choice to value people over pride. It was harder than being his father's son, harder than wielding power without accountability. But it was also richer, more meaningful, more human. The Porsche handled beautifully, its engine purring with the kind of precision that came from expert care. Elena had saved this machine, and in doing so, had inadvertently saved the man who owned it. Marcus smiled to himself, thinking about next week's program session. The ADB starting a unit on hybrid systems, and Elena had recruited a guest speaker from Ford's electric vehicle division. The kids were excited. So was he. Some lessons Marcus had learned cost more than money. They cost pride, certainty, the comfortable fiction that success justified callousness, but the knowledge gained about humility, about respect, about the value of expertise no matter where it came from, that knowledge was priceless. And it all started with a young mechanic who'd been brave enough to tell a powerful man the truth, and compassionate enough to help him learn from it. As Detroit's lights spread out before him like constellations, Marcus Richardson finally understood what his mother had tried to tell him months ago. Power without compassion was just tyranny on a smaller scale. But power used to amplify voices like Elena's, to create opportunities for kids who deserved them, to build instead of merely commanding. That was something worth spending a lifetime learning. And learn he would, for however many days remained to him. The city lights blurred slightly as unexpected tears filled his eyes. Not tears of sadness, but of gratitude, for second chances, for patient teachers, for the possibility of becoming someone better than you were yesterday. Marcus Richardson drove home through the Detroit night, changed and changing still, proof that even the hardest hearts could soften, even the proudest men could learn humility. And even the worst mistakes could become the foundation for something meaningful. All it took was the courage to admit you were wrong, and the determination to do better. The end.